So let no one judge you in food or in drink or regarding a festival or a new moon or Sabbaths. This verse shows that we should not judge those... Wait, that's not right. Since this verse declares that we should not judge one another regarding the Sabbath or feast days, it is evident that these things are no longer mandatory for God's people. In order to address this topic, we need to start back in verse 8, where the subject begins. We have to understand the entire train of thought in order to get the proper context for verse 16. Beware lest anyone cheat you through philosophy and empty deceit, according to the tradition of men, according to the basic principles of the world, and not according to Christ. For in him dwells all the fullness of the Godhead bodily, and you are complete in him who is the head of all principality and power. In him you were also circumcised with the circumcision made without hands, by putting off the body of the sins of the flesh, by the circumcision of Christ, buried with him in baptism, in which you were also raised with him through faith in the working of God, who raised him from the dead. And you, being dead in your trespasses and the uncircumcision of your flesh, he has made alive together with him, having forgiven you all trespasses, having wiped out the handwriting of requirements that was against us, which was contrary to us. This phrase, handwriting of requirements, does not mean the law itself. Christ did not come to abolish the law. The Greek phrase here is kairagraphon, which is a legal document of accusation, or the handwriting listing the offenses which the defendant was guilty of. Daniel Botkin has an excellent article explaining this, so please click the link in the description to check it out. So he forgave us and destroyed the enemy's accusation against us, and he has taken it out of the way, having nailed it to the cross. Having disarmed principalities and powers, he made a public spectacle of them, triumphing over them in it. So let no one judge you in food or in drink or regarding a festival or new moon or Sabbaths, which are a shadow of things to come, but the substance is of Christ. Let no one cheat you of your reward, taking delight in false humility and worship of angels, intruding into those things which he has not seen, vainly puffed up by his fleshly mind, and not holding fast to the head, from whom all the body, nourished and knit together by joints and ligaments, grows with the increase that is from God. Therefore, if you died with Christ from the basic principles of the world, why, as though living in the world, do you subject yourselves to regulations? Do not touch, do not taste, do not handle, which all concern things which perish with the using, according to the commandments and doctrines of men. These things indeed have an appearance of wisdom in self-imposed religion, false humility, and neglect of the body, but are of no value against the indulgence of the flesh. Let's look at what Paul is addressing in this passage. Philosophy, empty deceit, the tradition of men, the basic principles of the world, commandments and doctrines of men, the appearance of wisdom, self-imposed religion, and false humility. Does this sound like the law, which Paul describes in Romans as holy, just, good, and spiritual? Absolutely not. Paul is talking about the philosophies and traditions of men. Almost all Bible scholars agree that Paul's letter to the Colossians deals at least in part with addressing a common philosophy of the first century known as Gnosticism. Gnosticism teaches that matter is inherently evil and that secret, esoteric knowledge frees our spirit from matter. This was being mingled with Christianity to form heretical doctrines about the nature of salvation and even denying that Jesus came in the flesh. The fairly mainstream website, BibleStudyTools.com, states, "In Colossians, a great deal is said regarding a false teaching, an insidious theosophist doctrine, the teachers of which were alienating the Christians in Colossae from the gospel, and were disseminating their speculations, which led to the worship of angels in contrast to the worship of Christ, to esoteric exclusiveness, wholly opposed to the universality of the gospel, and to an asceticism injurious to Christian freedom and derogatory to the human body as indwelt by the Holy Ghost." This asceticism would put them at odds with those who were celebrating the Sabbath, new moons, and festivals with eating and drinking. It is plain to see that Paul is referring to the philosophies, doctrines, and traditions of men in this passage. The Colossians were being judged for their manner of celebration in eating and drinking on the Sabbath and other feast days.